Welcome to the Nomad Show. Yes, it is I, the Nomad, coming to you live from the wastelands of the internet. And yes, indeedy. Yes, I know about the frog. Hey, things happen. Things happen. Things happen, and as things go by, I figured I would start the show today a little bit and do a little fan service for Jensen, although he doesn't appear that he's here right now. But he'll look at it later, and I think he'll appreciate it. So it'll come with it. I am going to talk a little bit about the format of the show. Um, Not much is changing aside from the fact that I think I've been going a little too long with this. There's a number of things going on right now, so I'm going to try and limit the number of stories. Jensen has always recommended that I keep the number of stories down below 10, around 10, 10 to 15. And Jensen's not wrong. Okay, he's been trying to give me good advice on several different aspects of this. The problem is there's just so much to try and recap at the end of the week. So, I know some guy who wants people to use his music. Oh, okay. That's okay. I mean, if you want somebody who wants me to use his music, just send me a link and I'll contact him and maybe I'll use his music. It depends whether or not I like it and think it fits. But I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. So, but let's get started with the news. Russia says it's captured a Ukrainian frontline village west of Bakhmut. All right. As the militant attack on the Moscow concert hall, and we'll be talking about that, all right, became a new flashpoint or dispute between arch rivals, Russia's armed forces said they had seized the Ukrainian village of Ivaneska, all right, or Ivanesky, all right, just west of Bakhmut, the devastated city seized 10 months ago. Russian forces have taken control of a string of frontline settlements in recent weeks as Ukrainian forces suffer troop and ammunition shortages. The capture of Advoravka, all right, which I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. I'm not trying to butcher the name. uh, Near the Russian-held stronghold of Donetsk was the first major territorial gain made by Russia since Bakhmut and was hailed by President Vladimir Putin as a sign that the Russian forces are back on the offensive. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement that the army had liberated Ivanevsk, all right, which is also close to the town of Chavez Yar, which could become the next target. Okay, why am I doing this story? And why did I put it first? Okay, we'll be talking about some other stuff going on in Russia, which most of the Western media has focused on. I'm doing this because, one, I want people to understand the war is continuing. Okay, and people, like you said, James, all right, innocent people are dying. That's what happens in a war. Okay, it's unfortunate. Okay, but the war is still continuing. And as much as I would like the killing to stop and so forth, and I would like there to be a peaceful settlement to this, there is no peaceful settlement possible anymore. Okay, and I want people to understand people to have a tendency to forget certain things. Okay, and so I've got a question for you guys, and then I'll have an answer. I'm going to give you the answer, but I'm going to ask a question. What makes the despicable acts by the Nazis and Hitler far worse than the despicable acts by the Russians or the Soviets, right, during World War II? Okay. For people who don't understand, the war in Russia against the Soviets, right, and the Soviet Union wasn't just one-sided. There was atrocities being committed, okay, against the Germans, all right, who were captured by the Russians and so forth. And as the Soviets entered into Germany, and the German population was absolutely brutalized. Okay, so why aren't we holding them to the same accountability, right, as we hold Nazi Germany? Why do we look at Hitler as more of an evil, right, than Stalin? And the reason is the nature of the genocide of the Nazis. You see, when Russia attacked, or the Soviet Union attacked Poland, okay, in coordination with the Nazis. Okay, when they attacked Poland in conjunction with the Nazis, they rounded up a number of Polish officers and Polish forces, armed forces, and shot them. Mass graves. People forget about this. People forget about it. Well, they don't even know about it. The Soviets helped the Germans. They had made a deal with the Germans. They had made a deal with the Nazis. They were willing to make deals with the Nazis, all right, to further their own ends, which also furthered the ends of the Nazi regime. People, they don't even understand this. There was a time, and people forget this, right? There was a reason the British people looked upon the rest of the world and said, we are standing alone against the Nazis. Because they were. Because France, Belgium, the Netherlands, they'd all capitulated and been conquered. And the Soviet Union, the war against the Soviets, hadn't started yet. In fact, the Soviets were their freaking allies. The Soviets, people don't even realize this, the Soviets were supplying the Nazi regime with oil during the first part of that war. Russian oil, Soviet oil, was fueling the Nazi regime at the beginning of that war. So why do we look at this? And the reason is the very nature of the genocidal maniac that Hitler was. He was deciding, I'm going to kill people and eradicate a group of people only because, not because they had an attitude, not because they represented a threat to the regime, because they existed. When he went into his persecution and genocide against the Jews, right? And they were not looking at it from the standpoint of whether or not you were Jewish, followed the Jewish religion. Okay, this is something that we in Americans had a bad time with. They don't recognize it. When I say they, I am including the Hebrews. Okay, they don't recognize themselves strictly under the religious auspices. They also look at it as a genetic line, as a genetic group of people, as distinct along those lines. this is something that many Americans had a bad time and have a bad time understanding. Right? You say you're a Christian, okay. Well, no one cared where you came from when you say you're a Christian. That's just a religion. No one cares if you came from Botswana. No one cares if you came from Rwanda, all right, or Zimbabwe, or Australia, or El Salvador. You say you're a Christian, you're a Christian, okay. Say you're a Muslim. Once again, Americans don't really care where you came from. You say you're a Muslim. Did you come from Detroit? Did you come from Dallas? Did you come from Ottawa? Shanghai? No one cares. All right, because it's a religion. It's a religious focus. All right. It wasn't a genetic line. Hitler went after the Jews strictly because he was thinking of them as a genetically inferior. All right. Even during the worst atrocities committed by the American government against the Native Americans, okay, it was limited to those who were fighting. Now you can say, well, yeah, but they wanted to put them on nomads. They wanted to put them on reservations and everything, which was an investment into people. And that's all true, okay. But when they weren't fighting, there was no ethnic cleansing going on. They were not going into villages and killing them all. Right? So you have to understand there is a distinction there. When the Soviets came back and started attacking the Germans, okay, they were attacking them from a vengeance standpoint and a brutalization standpoint. All that's true, but they weren't doing it from the standpoint of you're ethnically German, so therefore all Germans are going to be raped. It's I realize that people think of this as a difference without a distinction, right? But there is a distinction there. There is a line there. If they were good little communists, Russians had no problem with them. The Soviets had no problem. In fact, they were very happy to sit up there and use East Germany that way. An awful lot of modern people are descendants by Genghis Khan. Probably some genetic predetermination. There is an estimate like that, but at some point we're all, if you really want to look at it, you can go back to saying, okay, we're all intermixed to some degree sooner or later anyway. Let's get on with the next story. Russia arrests 11 Moscow massacre suspects as they reveal the names and pictures of those they believe behind the ISIS concert hall slaughter as the death toll rises to 115. It's now about 130, and pictures reveal the bloody aftermath. Russian law enforcement have reportedly made arrests for suspects in Crocus concert hall massacre in Moscow. They reveal pictures and names of 4 suspects as the death toll rises to 115, including 3 children, and 115 people remain in the hospital. The condition of 44 survivors, including 2 children, is described as serious, while 16 other victims, including 1 child, are extremely serious. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attack, which was the deadliest in Russia in years, and left the 6,000 capacity concert hall in Krasnoyarsk, all right, outside of Moscow, in flames with a collapsing roof. 11 people have been detained following the horrific massacre, and the head of Russia's Federal Security Service told President Vladimir Putin on Saturday, according to Russian state news agency TASS. It comes after a white Renault with a or Renault whatever with a Tver region license plates with the alleged terrorist was stopped near the village of Teple, close to the borders with Belarus and the Ukraine, according to Baza Media. Okay. Um, I don't know who's at fault here. I don't know. Now, ISIS claims the responsibility. Okay. Why? All right. I have a problem with ISIS claiming the responsibility with this attack. And it's very simple. My problem with it is I can't understand a legitimate reason to attack for Hamas for ISIS, right? To attack Russia. Okay, unless you're going to say that it has something to do with Chechnya, which I haven't heard of Chechnya being very active lately when it comes to terrorism things. I don't see why they would do something like that. Now, could this be an attack that was funded, all right, against Russia as a response, all right, for ISIS, got ISIS individuals involved by the Ukrainians who then sicked them on the Russians? Yeah, it's possible. Is it possible that the Russians did it to themselves? Yeah. Is it possible that ISIS, you going through the Chechen region, sit up there and did this? Yeah, all of this is possible. But when it comes to the claim of responsibility, normally they give a reason behind their actions. I haven't heard of a reason being utilized yet, being talked about yet. Not saying there isn't one, but it's a horrific loss of life. But I want to point out something else. Thank you, James. I wanted to point out the fact that the Russians, if they're in such dire situations, are still able to hold concerts that a number of people are going to watch. People in Russia are going about their daily lives. The war for the Ukrainians, okay, is a war of survival. For the Russians, they're going about their daily lives, folks. All these people keep talking about how there's all these problems and all this other stuff, and I'm not denying that that the Russians aren't having problems in Ukraine. Okay, I'm not an apologist. Okay, I have said repeatedly that we should probably support the Ukrainians. I don't think we should be supporting them with weaponry and arms, and we shouldn't definitely not be the ones. All right, if you want to give them money and or you want to give them food, you want to sit up there and help the people that are starving over there, fine. I don't have a problem with that. Actual humanitarian aid. I don't have a problem giving them humanitarian aid. I do have a problem giving them some of our weapon systems, especially when the Ukrainians can't survive without the United States. I want you to think on that. My problem with what's going on over there is multiple. It has multiple levels of it. There's multiple reasons why I'm against our involvement to the degree that we're involved. Okay. The first problem that I have with it is, quite frankly, something I've said before, which is this is civil war, folks. People don't even realize this, but Russia as a nation state, as a empire, all right, begins a whole section of their history begins in Kiev. This is a civil war. Are there ethnic differences? Yes, there are ethnic differences between the Ukrainians and the Russians. I don't deny that. But you can't sit up there and tell me, all right, that the Ukraine as a state, all right, can exist in this form. It can't. It doesn't have defensible borders. And I have said this many times. Just because somebody is ethnically different than another group of people, that doesn't mean you can create a nation state out of whole cloth. In order for a nation state to exist, a requirement For a nation state to exist is defensible borders. You have to have defensible borders, or you're going to get overrun. Ukraine does not have defensible borders right now. Not the way it was situated. Not the way it was constituted. Now, there is a border point called the Dnieper River, right, that could have been used as a demarcation point, as a defense point. But it wasn't set up that way. The whole Donetsk region was on the other side of the Dnieper River. This is one of the problems that you're dealing with in the Middle East, to be honest. Is you have regions. Okay, this region's ethnically this region's ethnically that. Okay, where's the borders for these states? Well, there's this sand in between. That's not a defensible border, folks. It's not. So that's problem number one. Problem number two. What's our strategic goal? In the Ukraine, why are we supplying them weapons? What's our strategic goal? Just to stick an eye in the Russians? Okay. Why? Well, the Ukrainians, don't you understand? The Ukrainians, they were a democracy. The Ukrainians are no more of a democracy, right, than the Russians are. This is something that is, I can't get people to understand. Russia is as much of a democracy as the Ukrainians are. So why should I, from that perspective, be siding with the Ukrainians over the Russians? From that perspective. That's problem number two. Problem number three. Where are the Germans and the French? Where's the vaunted EU in all this? Sure. You have the British stepping up. Okay. Other than natural gas and not frog fruit. Isn't it odd that a pipeline surviving natural gas was cut just after like World War II after Poland? Right? My problem with the number three is the Europeans. Well, this is defense of Europe, no man. Why is the Europeans stepping up? Where's their weapon systems? Where's their frontline weapon systems? Aside from the British, right? Only the United States, they were relying almost completely upon the United States for supplying these guys weapons. We're giving them ammo and we're giving them this. Okay, you're going to tell me the industrial might of Germany and France, right, isn't enough to supply weaponry, all right, over to the Ukrainians? They have massive industries. They're from an industrial standpoint, both Germany and singly, all right, as nations themselves, all right, both of those nations singly, all right, out or have far more industrial capacity than the Russians do. Both of those nations are considered, all right, modern industrial states that have the industrial capacity that eclipses as their own, not together, but as their own, all right, Russia. And yet between the two of them, they can't supply the Ukrainians with the weapons that they need? Or they don't want to because they're relying upon Papa US. See, Papa US, come save us. Oh, we're gonna stab you in the back in the UN. You gotta listen to us in the UN. But save us. Go F yourselves, all of you over there. Poland is buying up anything that they can. They're buying up a lot of artillery from Korea, tanks too, I think. I have no problem supporting Poland. And I have no problem, to be honest, I have no problem parking a couple of armor brigades in Poland. In Poland. I'll be honest with you. I think we need to pull our troops completely out of Europe except for Poland and Italy. Okay. Maybe Spain. Maybe Spain only because of Spain's location. But Germany can go F itself. And I'm serious about that. We should have pulled out of our forces out of Germany. We should have pulled out completely. Poland's willing to defend itself, but the Germans and the French and the rest of those frickin' clowns, the Danish, okay, the Dutch, the Belgium, where's all their support? They're living the high life under the umbrella of security provided by the United States, and they stab us in the back and they thumb their noses at us at every freaking opportunity. Oh, you guys are doing this around the world, and you guys are doing that around the world, and you guys, but save us from the Russian bear. Go F yourself. Go save yourself. Hamas issues 2024 election warning to Biden. Boy, howdy, Hamas is really. U.S. President Joe Biden's failure to halt Israel's military offensive into Gaza could cost him at the ballot box as the ongoing war becomes the leading foreign policy issue in the lead up to the 2024 election, a senior official of the Palestinian Hamas movement told Newsweek. No, it won't. No, it won't. Okay? These people are just clowns. He is not going to lose the election, all right, because a bunch of Palestinians are running around screaming, "You gotta stop the British! We need a ceasefire! We need a ceasefire!" As concern grows, all right, over increasing civilian casualties. What civilian casualties? All right, in the 24-week-long conflict sparked by Hamas-led attack. What do you mean a Hamas-led attack? It was a Hamas attack on Israel in October 7th. Biden and his administration have called on Israel not to move forward with a planned incursion into the South Gaza's Rafah region, where up to half of the densely populated Palestinian territories, 2.2 million people, are believed to be taking shelter. Well, where are the other half? Where are the other half of this 2.2 million people? Okay? Also, screw Ben Shapiro and his Israeli mindset. I'm not going to defend Ben Shapiro on Israel. All right? I'm really not. After meeting Friday with his wartime cabinet and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, however, Benjamin Netanyahu asserted that he would press on with a plan with or without U.S. support. Bassem Naim, all right, a senior official and spokesperson for Hamas, argued that the U.S. could but would not pressure Israel sufficiently to change course, something he warned would harm U.S. interests and Biden's image among his own constituency when he asked about the president's fight for re-election in November. America has the ability, but not sufficient will to exert the necessary pressure on Israel, despite the internal pressure from in the United States due to the crimes it commits and endangerment of American interest in the region, Naim told Newsweek. This American path constitutes a strategic mistake stake in the internal and external levels. The American people will not accept the continuation of this blind bias toward Israel, and externally this threat this threatens its interests in the region. Why is Naeem not under arrest and charged with, all right, providing material support to a terrorist organization? Folks, once again, you're dealing with a situation, all right, where people are talking about, oh, they're civilians. How do you identify a civilian? How do you identify one? By the rules of war outlined in the Geneva Convention, every single frickin' Hamas agent, all right, is considered a frickin' civilian. Did you know that? By their definition. Now, you can say that they're terrorists and they're spies and that they can be somewhat summarily executed as spies because that's what they're doing, all right? But the reality is there is no group of fighters in uniform, all right, listening to the rules of war here. Now, you cannot like Israel for a lot of reasons. I'm not a fan of them at all, to be honest. But I don't think it's the United States' business to say what Israel should or shouldn't be doing at all anyway. Once again, we don't need to be supplying weapons, but we don't need to be supplying freaking Hamas with anything. And that includes the Palestinians, and that includes other aid. And perhaps if we wouldn't have this problem, if our supposed allies who are screaming about us, we gotta do something about the Ukrainians, we gotta do something, didn't stab us in the back with UN resolutions concerning Israel and some of the other things that are part of it. And yet these people keep going on and on and on. All right. Oh, we gotta do this. We got bad Israel, bad Israel. Look, I'm not going to defend Israel's actions one way or another. I don't need to. Number one, I've never been a fan of the Israelis ever since I first found out about what happened to the USS Liberty. Backstabbing weasels that they are. But they're a more consistent ally than France is, and they're a more consistent ally than Germany is. Maybe we should think about that. Now, as far as giving aid and support to the Palestinians, we should have cut. We have given them billions and billions and billions of dollars. Has the Palestinians improved their lives? No, they freaking build bonds with them. Oh, we gotta save these people. Why? I gotta feed Hamas? Screw that. This is war. My children are dying. Don't you understand? My children are dying. They went to war. Children were dying all over the place. If you didn't want the damn children to die, you should have done something to prevent these assholes from declaring war. If you were really that fucking concerned about it, you would have been going in there and giving them freaking food and other things and making sure that when you gave them money to the Palestinians, that the Palestinians actually were doing what was right with their funds. Otherwise, they need to be defeated, and that's the only way that this ends, is with the Palestinians saying, "We surrender." You should be trying, if you really want to stop this conflict, if you really want to put it down and put it past it, you've got to get them to go, "We surrender." All of them as a group of people, and then they go out there, take the leaders of Hamas, and give them to the world community for war crimes. James. What do we get in the UN? Our UN chief calls for probe into suspected Israeli targeting of civilians in Gaza. UN Secretary Antonio Gutierrez calls for an investigation into drone footage that appears to show an Israeli attack on 4 civilians in Gaza, his spokesman said on Friday. All right, well, where's the where's the UN resolution? Where's the UN resolution? Where are your calls? All right, to sit up there and do an investigation into Hamas's freaking treatment of their hostages. Where are you not calling for this, Antonio Gutierrez? Why are you not saying we are going to hold the people who are brutalizing the hostages, or the Israeli hostages? We are going to hold you responsible. We're going to find you, and we're going to try you in the criminal court. Where are you, Andreas? This is what I'm talking about. Sure. You can sit up there and say what this was going on, and then the poor Palestinians, um, um, they, they were unarmed, and they were walking, and they were okay. What were they doing? Were they spies? Were they telling people where these people were? All right, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna relate a story. True story, by the way. Okay, in Afghanistan, we had a SEAL team. We had a SEAL team in an area, and they were conducting an operation. And during the conduct of the operation, they captured a 13-year-old boy. Okay, and a 13-year-old boy had discovered where they were, and they knew that if the 13-year-old boy was released, he would go back. They were worried he would tell the the bad guys where they were, because they were basically doing, recon. The commander of the SEAL team decided, all right, to release the little crumb cruncher. Little crumb cruncher immediately returned, told the terrorists where our people were, and most of his team got wiped out because 200 fighters came and did this. I want you to think on that. That's what war actually is. Those are the decisions you have to make in war. And I'm going to be real blunt with you. The commander of that SEAL team made the wrong decision. He didn't put his lives of his men, he didn't hold them, and his mission as a result was compromised because he failed to put his men's lives as the most highest priority he had. Because he didn't put his mission as the highest priority. Both his mission and his men were compromised. All because a 13-year-old spy was being used by the enemy. So these people are now running around. Gutierrez, they were just walking. No, they were scouting. Once again, folks, I'm not saying the Israelis are good people. Like I said, I don't think the Israelis need any weaponry from the United States. But when it comes to the Palestinians, you really want me to solve the problem? I'll solve it for you. Take me about 30, 40 minutes to solve it. Because I would issue a very simple decree if I was president of the United States. I would sit up there and tell the Palestinians this is war. All right. And if you think that this is a joke anymore, it's not. Have you declared war on the United States? Yes, they have. And since you've declared war on us, we are going to sit up there and end this threat right now. It's very simple. You either surrender or you cease to exist. And I would tell them you got 48 hours. And during those 48 hours, I'd be ordering B 52s armed to the hilt in preparation to do grid by grid bombing until they surrender. And once they surrender, this will all be over. Free trebuchet ride. From Salon magazine. Dumbest thing he could have ever done. Experts say Trump's Truth Social brab could backfire in court. Former President Donald Trump, Trump, Trump claimed on Truth Social that he has tons of cash after his lawyers asked a court to stay his $454 million New York fraud judgment because he could not secure a bond. Through hard work, talent, and luck, I currently have almost $500 million in cash, a substantial amount which I intend to use in my campaign for president, Trump claimed on Friday. In other words, this is campaign on hand cash, dude. All right, it isn't liquid cash that can be used, all right, for a $454 million fraud judgment. All right? This is the kind of stupidity when this underlines this claim. He now claims he has almost $500 million in cash, but his lawyers recently told this. He's just stupid. He's just stupid. No, he's not. The people who are stupid are the people who are intentionally, all right, ignoring what he was saying and out of the context of what he was talking about. If it's campaign cash, if it's money that's part of the campaign, that's for the campaign, okay. If that's the case, you can't use campaign cash or campaign donations, all right, to sit up there and fund this judgment. Ronaldo? Mariotti? Mr. Mariotti? All right? But see, you're not an honest person. This is the problem that we have right now, folks. And this is one of the reasons why I get very upset when our side is being disingenuous and dishonest as well. You can't come to an agreement with people who are inherently dishonest because you can't trust anything that they say. You can't believe any of their words. They want Truth Social money. No, they want to destroy Truth Social, right? Look, Truth Social, I don't even have an account for Truth Social for those who don't know, right? Why? Because it's a useless platform to me. It serves me no useful purpose. It's not because I have anything against Trump. Right? I'm not a Trump's biggest fan. Never will be. But if I have to decide between Trump and someone like, oh, I don't know, Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney, I'm taking Trump. There was a time period when Democrats understood national security. There was a time period when Democrats understood that America was not the enemy of the world. But Democrats have been taken over, right? And now, for the most part, all of them believe that if America didn't exist, the world would be better off. That's who these people are. It's one of the reasons why you can't trust anything that they say or anything that they do. You just had, for crying out loud, one of their big doyums or big freaking speakers, freaking AOC, come out there and go, RICO isn't against the law. It's not a statute. The very statute that Fannie Willis is charging Trump with, that she's all for, is the very one she tried to claim that, oh, no, but Biden, he wasn't doing anything wrong. The guy's a criminal. And you know it. They're not honest people. They don't care about you and me. They don't care about the country. They only care about themselves and how they can sit up there and benefit. I would love somebody to sit up there. I would love for somebody, right, to actually print AOC's net worth. She's only been in Congress for about 4 years. She said she was a waitress before. Her net worth was less than $50,000 a year, supposedly. Right? What is it now? Want to bet it's over $1 million? Want to bet it's over 2 or 3 million? Meanwhile, Biden. Intel community circulates DEI newsletter highlighting cross-dressing and inclusive language. Gee, I wonder what the CIA is really interested in. You have an intelligence officer. I'm an intelligence officer, and I am a man who likes to wear women's clothes sometimes. This is what you're putting out throughout the intelligence agency. DEI is so critical to the intel agencies not doing their job. No, DEI newsletters are important. And you wonder why we get things like this. Chipotle manager admitted to lewd acts in restaurant dining room, cops say. A Chipotle manager exposed himself and masturbated in a dining room on a Pennsylvania in the dining room of a Pennsylvania restaurant, according to police, who say that a female victim felt 3 squirts of liquid hit her jeans when she got up to leave the table where the man had allegedly pleasured himself. Following the March 1st incident at the eatery in Camp Hill, a Harrisburg suburb, 2 women went to the local police station to report sexual assault. The women, one of whom was a former Chipotle employee, detailed an encounter with Kasim Ransom, a 26-year-old manager. The duo told the cops that they were seated at a communal table, seen below, talking to Rasim and other employees when Ransom began doing something with his hands down on his crotch. One of the women say they saw Ransom touching his penis outside his pants, recalling that she was in denial and looked away. Denial and looked away? Why did you immediately get up? And this is the counter. This is what's down below. Okay. Denial? Why would you stay there? Okay. Seriously. Why would you stay there? There's even more stupidity. House Democrats in Minnesota have put forward a bill with the goal of establishing a basic income program that would include undocumented residents in the state. People who would qualify for this program would receive a monthly check of $500 or more. Advocates are cheering this bill as a way to help struggling families, while opponents are skeptical with a no-strings-attached payment to non-citizens. Can't fund the police in Minnesota, but have no problem just throwing cash out the freaking door. And you wonder why Minnesota has become a shithole. The only thing that prevents Minnesota, from becoming San Francisco on steroids. The only thing that's happened is because nobody wants to live there because it's too freaking cold in the winter. That's what keeps these idiots out of this. If passed into law, critics say the bill could effectively redistribute taxpayer money to undocumented immigrants who would qualify. These immigrants would receive $500 or more in monthly payments for 18 to 24 months. Not everyone would qualify for relief under the bill. People who wish to qualify must be at or below the federal poverty level by 300% from either household income or other public benefits. Okay, a similar piece of legislation in the Senate called Senate File 2559 is also proposing cash payments. If these two bills both pass, undocumented immigrants in the state of Minnesota could be receiving monthly payments of between $350 to $1,200 a month in Minnesota, where you can get a house where rent is probably around $350. This would pay somebody's entire rent for their house, right? While other people are struggling, while veterans are struggling, these people are doing this. Just putting it out there. Meanwhile, the DOJ sues Apple over iPhone monopoly and trademark. The Justice Department sued Apple on Thursday, saying its iPhone ecosystem is a monopoly that drove its astronomical valuation at the expense of consumers, developers, and rival phone makers. The government has not ruled out breaking up one of the largest companies in the world, with a Justice Department official saying on a briefing call that the structural relief was on the table if the U.S. were to win. The lawsuit claims Apple's anti competitive practices extend beyond the iPhone and iWatch business, citing Apple's advertising, browser, FaceTime, and new offerings. Each step in Apple's course of conduct built and reinforced the moat around its smartphone monopoly, according to the suit filed by the Justice Department. All right. Apple shares fell more than 4% in trading on Thursday. A breakup of Apple, if successful, would be one of only a handful of breakups under the Sherman Act. Okay. One of, first of all, Apple is going the way of the dodo, folks. I know people are like, oh, Apple's huge and it's never going away and it's got all this business and it can't get destroyed. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. And it's hardly a monopoly. There are plenty of Android users, there's plenty of Google phone users, all right, out there. Now, as far as some of the practices of selling apps goes, that's a different issue. But the remedy is to open up their operating system. Not the remedy for Apple's abuses is not to break up the company. It's to open up the market so that other people can compete with it fairly. That's what it needs. Well, what about? I can hear it now. No man, no man. What about AT&T when they broke up AT&T? AT&T was a monopoly, okay, but like all monopolies, they don't exist unless they're getting supported by the government somehow. They can't exist on their own natively. Never could. That's a reality, folks. Monopolies cannot exist outside of a government helping them. Why? Because people will sit up there and compete with them. to say, well, they can sit up there and if they're so large, they can use one side to drive out of business, all right, and then undercut the sales in these other areas. Okay, and all that would happen in those cases is a company would sit up there and purchase their cheaper stuff in the cheaper areas, right, and they would sell it for cheaper in the higher areas. That's what would happen. Now, back in the day, you had things like Standard Oil, and Standard Oil, you could come back and say, well, they were a monopoly. They were a monopoly. Yeah, they were a monopoly, but not for the reasons you think. They were a monopoly because they seized control of the railroads, and so they could effectively do what you were saying by preventing other people from transporting their goods. Just putting it out there. Hey, no man, how's the weather? Well, right now the weather is cloudy, and it's probably going to be rainy all weekend. Uh, Rainy all weekend and rainy all week. That's how the weather is. Harry will be devastated that Kate Middleton has cancer. Prince and Meghan's message to the Princess of Wales was lovely, but it would be a distraction if he returned to the UK, say royal experts. That's true. Okay. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's lovely message to Princess of Wales should be give hope that their rift could be mended in the future. But a visit to the UK would be a distraction from Kate's recovery, a royal expert said today. Commentator Richard Fitzwilliams said he believes Harry will be devastated that Kate, who he always called Kath, and once said she was the sister I never had cancer. Biographer and historian Hugo Victors believes the California couple should stay in the U.S. I personally think they should go back to Canada and never be allowed in the U.S. All right, for now, to aid the future queen's cancer fight and recovery. All right, why am I doing this story? Well, one, I have a number of British followers, all right, and this is an important story for them. Why? Because Kate Middleton was the only glue holding the royal family together. And while we poo poo and have no use for royalty in the United States, that's not how they see government over there. And Kate Middleton, for all you can say about this royal or that royal, she at least, okay, was the one who was the you could at least say was had the qualities, all right, the positive qualities necessary to continue the royal line in Britain. Okay, is she perfect? Of course not. But she was not someone of all the royal family. She's the one who had the most positive impact on the royal family. She's the one who had the most positive impact on the royal family. There's no doubt about that. And it's unfortunate because of the cancer diagnosis. And cancer is a tough thing, tough to beat it. And she got it at an early age. Now, right now, you have King Charles has cancer. So does she. Now, they didn't say what kind of cancer it was. Okay, they didn't say what kind of cancer it was, and they didn't say what stage of cancer it was. From the indications, it looks like they caught it early. All right, but I don't know. I don't know. We don't know the seriousness of the disease, and I use that term intentionally because some cancers are worse than other cancers. People don't understand this. There's certain breast cancer, for example. Breast cancer is there's two forms of breast cancer, and unfortunately, the most common is the most malignant. It's the most devastating. Maybe there's a uniparty brain tumor. It's a tumor. Okay, no, folks, it's unfortunate. I don't wish this disease on anyone. Um, I do know people who've died of cancer. I also know people who are living with cancer. And I know of a friend of mine, right, and I consider him a good friend, who was given 6 months to live from a cancer diagnosis. In fact, they said that his life expectancy past a year was less than 5%. It's been close to 7 years now. He's still alive. But he's one of the lucky ones. Not everyone's that lucky, right? It can be beaten, it can be fought. It's a long term struggle for the rest of her life. Regarding Charles, slow but effective. All right, I'll be honest with you. I think Charles's cancer is probably prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is not as aggressive. It's not as aggressive as other forms of cancer. That's not saying that it isn't serious, but it's not as aggressive. Generally, it's not as aggressive like breast cancer is. Breast cancer can be highly aggressive. So huzzah, I guess. The degeneracy continues. I quit porn and became a nurse. Here's why I'm going back to making X-rated movies. I put this up because I saw the headline. I have not read the article. So we'll be reading the article together, folks. But I can guess money. It's going to come down to money. She's porn again, more than 15 years after quitting a kinky career in the adult entertainment to become a nurse. Busty beauty Sadie Summers is stepping back in front of a camera, and she can't wait to resume her old life. Doing porn is the best job in the world, the 38-year-old healthcare professional enthused in an interview with the Post on Thursday. I've never been ashamed of my sexuality. The luscious lifesaver made her X-rated debut in 2005, long before Pornhub and OnlyFans were part of the everyday vernacular. The majority of my movies were coming out on DVD. Nothing was really on the internet, said the Canadian-born blonde. All right. I remember back in the day when on we would have to go check out what magazines we were in by going to the sex shops and picking them off the shelves. It was a very different time. Summers shot 70 frisky flicks before leaving the industry in 2008. So, in a 3 year period between 2005 and 2008, she made 70 films, folks. All right, just putting it out there. She worked several seasons on the ski slopes of the Whistler, British Columbia before deciding to head to nursing school. All right. I wanted to prove to myself that I could get a degree. The Jill of all trades explained. I worked as a nurse for a long time. I'm still licensed and still do work occasionally because I like it. In 2016, Summers met a man who would go on to become her husband. They wed in 2018 and welcomed their son 3 years later. Ironically, after she settled into a life of domestic bliss, that the self-described exhibitionist found herself compelled to get back in front of the camera. Summers had her husband set up an OnlyFans following the COVID pandemic and quickly amassed an army of amorous followers. They're going around this again and again. At some point, I'm going to look through this. Right? There's got to be money involved in this. While Summers' professional background means that she could easily lean into the naughty nurse subgenre, she said she's not interested in capitalizing on that cake. It would be hard for me to incorporate that. I want to keep separation. The horny healer explained. But there's plenty of other kinks to explore. Oh my god, there's the void of the reality. Look, the reason she did it is because of money. Okay, they don't say that to this whole thing, and they don't go into why she's doing it either. All right, uh, just putting it out there. I wonder how many people caught this story. Squatters seize a Beverly Hills mansion near LeBron James's new home. Neighbors thanks liberals. Beverly Grove Place, a quiet enclave adjacent to Beverly Hills, has long been a coveted address for the rich and famous, with basketball icon LeBron James recently erecting a lavish abode and the power couple Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck dropping a cool $61 million on a compound last year. It seemed like the epitome of exclusivity. However, shockwaves ripped through the neighborhood when reports surfaced of squatters taking up residence just down the block from James's forthcoming mansion at 1316 Beverly Grove Place from October 2023 to February 2024, according to Curbed. Contrary to the image of a struggling locals unable to afford Los Angeles' exorbitant rents, these weren't downtrodden individuals seeking shelter. Rather, they were opportunistic grifters exploiting a neglected mansion to masquerade as affluent socialites and host extravagant soirees. Morgan Gallego, all right, an aspiring actor, spearheaded the operation, fabricating a fake lease to establish his claim over the mansion without facing legal repercussions. This has become an issue because all of a sudden people are like, there's things called squatters' rights in California where they basically just seize your home and you can't do anything about it. And it's not just there, it's also in New York. They arrested a lady who was trying to evict a squatter from her home. As how dare you try to evict someone from your home who didn't belong there? His nights were a blur of relentless revelry with parties raging 5 evenings a week, each demanding a hefty admission fees ranging between $500 to $1,500. The ambiance was carefully curated, all right, complete with rave lights, Warhol-esque prints, and a disco ball, creating the illusion of opulence. Gallego's makeshift empire accommodated not only him, but also his fiancée and a rotating cast of friends. He even turned a profit by renting out bedrooms at a rate ranging between $150 to $300 a night. I'll bet without providing any lodging. Some guests were offered accommodations in exchange for cleaning services. Despite neighbors' outcry over the disruptive festivities, Garrigo asserted his tenancy rights, all right, whenever challenged and cited his purported lease. Law enforcement intervention proved futile. Did you hear about the Yonkers couple murdered by 4 people and they are free without bail? Yeah, I have heard about that. And that's happening left and right down there because they're just letting these criminals out of prison left and right. There's really not anything funny about any of this stuff. This is what liberalism is on steroids. People I've got a nephew in New York City. Okay, he lives in New York City. Wanted to be part of the Manhattan scene. Went to work, all right, to be a part of that to try and make his way, right, in business. Right? He's a marketing. He has a master's degree in marketing. Went to work for one of these finance firms, and he's struggling. Right? He's struggling, and he's making what you would consider a very good salary for somebody who had no real work experience. I'm not going to talk about his salary, right? But if he was making that salary in his hometown, which was Omaha, Nebraska, he would be living the good life. Instead, he's living in a hovel. It's not really a hovel, but you understand my point. And it's going to get worse. And I pray for him. I pray he gets better. I pray he that he finds a way to get continue in his job and make his way, and that he stays safe in a city that is not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. What's his rent? His rent is over $2,000 a month for a studio apartment. I think a one bedroom is like, yeah, well that's a, like I said, a studio apartment is not even a one bedroom. It's basically it's bigger than a closet, but not by much. But it's over $2,000 a month. I know it's over $2,000 a month. He did. It could be closer to four. It wouldn't surprise me. Leprosy is spreading in Florida. Leprosy is on the rise again in the United States, particularly in Florida, concerning disease specialists. According to the WHO, about 200,000 cases of disease occur every year in 120 countries worldwide and are often associated with contact with armadillos. Armadillos? There aren't any armadillos in Florida that I know of. The U.S. is experiencing cases creep upwards with a number of infections across the country more than doubling over the past decade, both in people exposed to armadillos and those who aren't. According to the report from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention last year, there were 159 new cases of leprosy in the United States in 2020, around a fifth of which were in Florida. Of the Florida cases, 81% were found in the central Florida. The cases in the southeastern states have nearly doubled over the last decade, according to the report. Florida reported 10 cases of leprosy every year between 2002 and 2014. This rose to 29 new cases in 2015. There were 15 cases in 2023, said Francesca Mutapi, a professor at the Global Health Infection and Immunity and co-director of the Global Health Academy at the University of Edinburgh, told Newsweek. The global cases detection rate dropped between 2019 and 2020, but this has but has been on a lot. So COVID must have killed leprosy as well. All right. But this has been rising ever since then. The WHO attributed part of the decline in cases, all right, to the impact of COVID 19. Oh my god, you can't make this stuff up. There's definitely no armadillos in Edinburgh. Uh, leprosy, also known as Hansen's disease, is caused by a bacteria, whatever the name of it is. I'm not going to try and do it, and is one of the oldest recorded diseases having infected humans for thousands of years. It primarily affects skin, peripheral nerves, mucosa of the upper respiratory tract, the eyes, and causes symptoms including skin lesions, which may be lighter or darker than the surrounding skin and may lack sensation. Other symptoms include numbness or weakness of the hands, feet, nerve damage, and severe cases of deformalities and disabilities. All right, symptoms may take as long as 20 years to set in. Deaths from the disease are uncommon, but complications related to the disease can still occur, particularly if left untreated or if treatment is delayed. The complications may include secondary infections, nerve damage leading to disabilities, and other health issues. All right. The only known the animal to human transmission route of the disease is from armadillos. The interaction with armadillos is also often associated with cases of leprosy. However, many people also catch it from other humans or even without human to human interaction, mystifying researchers. Most commonly caught by because of eating uncooked freshwater fish. I suspect that that's probably something to do with it. Besides humans, all right, it's also known to infect armadillos, red squirrels in the UK, and chimpanzees in West African countries of Ghana, Bissau, and Ivory Coast. My collaborator here at CSU, Dr. Charlotte Avanzi, has performed a whole genome sequencing of over 200 clinical human isolates from Brazil and has also sequenced isolates from armadillos in Mexico and from chimpanzees in West Africa. It's also likely that the disease or it can spread for or can survive for months or years in the soil and water inside amoeba, excuse me, that could serve as another environmental reservoir infecting humans like the people in Florida. Okay, who wants Popeye's chicken? Not me. A couple arrested on Saturday afternoon for having sex on a sidewalk in front of a Popeyes in plain view of passing motorists, Florida police charged. Responding to lewd behavior, a sheriff's deputy located the two suspects trysting on a patch of grass across from a Vero Beach restaurant, which is directly adjacent to U.S. Highway 1. According to the arrest reports, the cops spotted Arnold Mackey, 70, right? A 70-year-old man, all right, making a thrusting motion while on top of April White, 44. I don't know. Maybe I want to say kudos to this. All right. When confronted by Deputy Eric Bashirs around 2 p.m. This is at 2 p.m. The couple began adjusting their shorts. Mackey, the cop noted, appeared flustered and unable to fully pull his shorts up, which left his penis fully exposed to oncoming traffic. Claiming she had done nothing wrong, White reportedly struggled with a cop, called him a faggot, and other obscenities as he sought to restrain White, who smelled of alcohol and was escorted to the ground. All right, where police found 4 empty bottles of vodka and an open bottle of rum. An unopened bottle of rum, excuse me. Motorists called 911 after spotting the dude, and he said he did a double take because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. After being read his rights, Mackey reportedly said that it was not his intention to expose himself and he had asked White to leave the side of the road, but she refused. Recognizing that he was in plain view of passing motorists, he said that he would apologize to the judge. I'm just relating the stories, folks. Final story of the day. Final story. North Carolina officials warn residents there could be bears under their homes. Wildlife officials in North Carolina are warning residents to be aware of an unusual potential household hazard: bears waking up under the house. Justin McBee, a district wildlife biologist with the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission, said officials have noticed an uptick in recent years of bears making their winter homes under houses and decks. When people think of dens, they always think of caves, McVie told WGHP TV. That's really not the case. He said bear dens are often found in crawl spaces and backyard brush piles. When I started out here 12 years ago, I may have gotten one or possibly two calls about it. Now we probably hear between 10 to 15 of those cases. He said wildlife officials might the unwanted squatters, although they're squatters now, right? Depending upon the time of year. He said officials are hesitant to relocate mother bears with very young cubs. The fun part of my job is to convince a homeowner that it's okay to have a bear under their house. I don't think that it's okay to have a bear under your house. Unless you're the unless you're Grizzly Adams, having a bear under your house is probably not a good conducive atmosphere. He said bears usually vacate their winter dens voluntarily around late March and early April. California's Bear League shared a video in January of a bear being evicted from underneath a North Lake Tahoe home. The Bruin had accidentally been barricaded into a crawl space by a handyman who installed some wires. You go down there and do a little electrical work. Hello, Schmooky. I think I'm going to back out of here. Hibernation season is over. The bears are becoming active. All right. And they're not a joke. Because when bears wake up from hibernation, the one thing that they all are is hungry. All right. They are some hungry bears. And they're looking for food. Okay. And guess what? You're not off the menu. I'm just pointing it out. Just pointing it out there, folks. All right, everybody. Hope you all had a good day. That's all I've got for today. Be good. Be safe. Have a good day. Talk to y'all later. Bye bye.